The dominoes could be about to tumble in the Premier League transfer window. Arsenal have sparked a potential chain reaction following the news last night that Eberechi Eze is on his way to Arsenal. And it was David Ornstein who broke the news, stating that Eberechi Eze agrees personal terms with Arsenal ahead of completing a move from Crystal Palace. Deal in principle already struck for 27-year-old attacking midfielder to join Arsenal. That is massive. But is it what you wanted, Arsenal? Be honest with yourselves. Is it what you wanted? Because not every Arsenal fan wanted Eberechi Eze. In fact, they had 3 other alternative targets. This particular Arsenal fan wanted these 3 players following the news that Kai Havertz could be out for some time going into this season, and these are the 3 players he wanted: Rodrygo, Rafael Leao, and Antoine Semenyo, which I think is interesting considering you didn't get any of those 3. Rodrygo could well be part of a chain reaction, but not ending up at the likes of Arsenal. Certainly not following the news that Eze is on his way to Arsenal as well. So that obviously changed the tune for most likely that Arsenal fan as well as the Arsenal fan base on the whole. So what's the first thing you do when you find out that Eberechi is on his way to Arsenal instead of the likes of Rodrygo, Rafael Leao, and Antoine Semenyo? You get the spray cans out, don't you, and start painting pictures of Eberechi Eze all over London. That's the first thing you do, of course. Here is a mural of Eberechi Eze. Already, quick with the spray cans. Immediately straight onto the scene. But the question remains, was Kai Havertz's injury the reason why Arsenal swooped in for Eberechi Eze? And considering that he was very much a target for Spurs as well, that's a plus for Arsenal fans, no doubt, getting to laugh at their neighbours as well. I'm not sure that's the case, in all honesty, because although I think Eberechi Eze can play through the middle, Kai Havertz has most predominantly played through the middle. He's also drifted out to the left-hand side for Arsenal in recent times, but predominantly played through the middle and even in that false 9 role, in the centre-forward role as well. But Eberechi Eze, I think he more leans towards the left-hand side, who can drift inside, so there may be some connections between the two, but I think this is very much a left-sided player for Arsenal, and the heat map suggests that, considering last season he was very much drifting over to the left-hand side of the pitch. Still coming inside, but not too much. A little bit more of the inside forward there, but playing a little bit deeper, which is probably more a Palace thing than anything, in all honesty, because I'm not quite convinced that he's going to be playing so deep in an Arsenal shirt, because Arsenal will likely dominate most of the football matches they're in this season. But then, of course, what does that mean for Spurs? So that domino has fallen. What's the next domino to follow after that? Because, of course, they have been linked with Savinho already in this transfer window, and Manchester City fans have got something to think about there in that regard as well. But it was reported on the 17th of August that Savinho remains keen on a Tottenham move, as negotiations are not over yet. Tottenham plan to try again for Savinho after first bid revealed 1 week ago. Manchester City closing doors to exit, but in case of improved proposal, stance could change. But then, of course, City faced Wolves. The opening Premier League game of the season, Manchester City absolutely dominated Wolves, sending out an early statement to the rest of the Premier League that Manchester City mean business. But the starting 11, as well as the bench, was an interesting talking point considering the targets for alternative clubs as well as Manchester City's future squad. Savinho was injured. So the first thing you do when you're injured, for me, when I get injured, the first thing I do is head straight to the gym and make it 10 times worse. That's what I do. And that's what Savinho does, apparently. He's clearly injured there, chilling in the gym. Just, that's what you do. I mean, we could be reading too much into that, in all honesty. It could be an injury of the arm and he's working on his legs, or a leg injury and he's working on his arms. You never know. I'm reading a bit much into that, in all honesty. But still, I'm not convinced that that was the real reason why Savinho was not in the squad against Wolves. But then, as of today, Carhe Mota, Brazilian journalist, has reported that Tottenham have increased their bid for Savinho to around 80 million euros after Eze's decision in favour of Arsenal. The player's agents remain in the UK to manage talks between the clubs. Interesting. But Manchester City fans, I think there's a tear in the fan base. There's a split opinion there, because I think certain City fans want Savinho to stay because there's a huge amount of potential there. The Girona season in particular is what Manchester City fans are focusing on. The lack of goals last season in the Premier League is noteworthy, at least, and it was a concern for City fans. But he did play on the right the previous season. He played on the left. If he goes to Spurs, he's most likely going to be playing on the left, which is his favourite position, where he shone in La Liga for a Girona side where he was absolutely ripping it up. Brilliant season for Savinho in that season, and a little bit underwhelming the following season, but like I said, predominantly playing on the right. So, if Savinho goes to Spurs, there is another domino that must tumble. And of course, that is Rodrygo. And it was quite some time ago, actually, that Fabrizio reported on the 11th of August that Manchester City are considering a move for Rodrygo after imminent exits. Grealish gone, McAtee and Savinho can leave. And Manchester City see Rodrygo as a dream target. Guardiola, big fan. Real Madrid will let him leave if player wants. Asking for around a measly €100 million. So if City were to let Savinho go for €80 million, we're effectively spending an extra $20 million on top of that to go and sign the likes of Rodrygo. I think that's a win-win situation. Arguably a win-win-win. 3 wins. I think Eze to Arsenal. I think Arsenal fans can be reasonably happy with that. I think he's a great player. He's very much gone up a level in recent years in a Crystal Palace shirt. I think Savinho to Spurs. I'm a little bit worried about it as a City fan because I think there's a bit of a PTSD situation going on with the Manchester City fan base following the Cole Palmer news. But in all honesty, I want to move on from that. As a City fan, you have to forget and move on that not every player that you have at your football club is indisposable. We have to let some players go if they want to leave. And could Savinho hit the heights? Yes, I think he could. He could shine in a Spurs shirt. But if it means Rodrygo comes in, I think that's a win for City as well. So I think all 3 clubs involved in this scenario could be very, very happy at the end of this transfer window. And it all hinges on Savinho and Spurs and Manchester City doing business with Daniel Levy, which is a notoriously difficult situation for both clubs because of the Kyle Walker history, Harry Kane history, and Daniel Levy does not want to do business well with Manchester City, but it's roles reversed this time because Manchester City have something that he wants. Then, of course, it was only 3 days ago that Guillem Balege was reporting that Manchester City have decided Savinho is to stay. That kills any possibility of Rodrygo joining City. Real Madrid did not get an offer for him, as it was depending on Savinho leaving. Fast forward another day and Real Madrid, similar to the Savinho not being in the squad against Wolves, Real Madrid faced Osasuna. Rodrygo was in the squad, but he was on the bench, as reported here by Fabrizio Romano, saying 0 minutes again for Rodrygo tonight, as he was an unused sub against Osasuna. Manchester City want Rodrygo, but will only try if Savinho goes to Tottenham. And that move is still not advancing, blocked by Manchester City hierarchy as of now. Now, I believe when he says blocked, he's not talking about stubbornness or a bit of revenge against the likes of Daniel Levy, with Manchester City struggling to do business with the Tottenham hierarchy. I don't believe it's anything to do with that. I just think it's a case of pay up. Pay the money we want. Manchester City want that lump sum. It's as simple as that. Then even more recently, Edu Aguirre has reported that Rodrygo wants to stay at Real Madrid. He is very motivated to fight for his place. Lots of twisting and turning, and I think you have to push out a narrative there depending on the circumstances. The fact that both Savinho and Rodrygo are seemingly trying to not burn bridges. One was on the bench, the other one was injured. You know, there is a possibility, there's a doorway back into the current clubs. Rodrygo could still be a Real Madrid player at the end of the transfer window. Savinho could still be a Manchester City player at the end of the transfer window. And if that's the case, I think Real Madrid can be happy because they've got a great player on their hands. I think Manchester City fans could be happy because I think Savinho is a very good, promising player, and he's got a ceiling that is high ceiling for Savinho, so who knows what he could go on to achieve. But that leaves Spurs wondering, what are we going to do? Because we've not got a player in that situation that we can be excited about in that particular role. Could they look at someone like Visser? Someone like that potentially, which is not quite a winger, more of a forward, or possibly as a number 10. But still, Spurs would therefore need to go back into the transfer market and find another alternative target. If they failed on Eze and they failed on Savinho, it could end up being a reasonably disappointing end to the transfer window, which got off to a promising start. Slap bang in the middle of it, Maddison picks up an injury that has thrown a spanner in the works for Spurs. Amazing times though. These dominoes tumbling. It's such an exciting transfer window. Get in the comments below. Let me know your thoughts. Make sure to like and subscribe to Transfer News Live. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.